American mainstream media is bought and paid for by the Communist Party of China, and they may have interfered in the 2020 election as well. Sounds like conspiracy theory? Yeah, I thought so too, until I followed the money and connected the dots. I'm Joel Chipkar, and this is For What It's Worth. Let me say up front that this video will not support Trump or Biden. However, I need to focus on certain facts in order to expose something very concerning that affects us all. Never in my life have I seen such a use of media censorship and propaganda to subvert, control, and even kill millions like I've seen used by the Communist Party in China over the past 20 years as a human rights advocate. Never, that is, until the 2020 US election, where so-called mainstream media has created such a division of people that now viscerally hate each other because of the political leader they support. I mean, like Trump as a person or not, for CNN to report that Trump was worse than Hitler is way over the top.
Trump is as destructive a person in this century as Hitler, Stalin, and Mao were in the last century. He may be responsible for many more million deaths than they were.
Or when the Washington Post followed up with similar articles, one of them titled, "Don't compare Trump to Hitler, it belittles Hitler." Remember, these dictators violently slaughtered tens of millions of people. Or the onslaught of impeachment protocols accusing President Trump of colluding with Russia to fix the 2016 election, all of which was disproven in court, but was reported by mainstream media for years ad nauseum. When it came to Biden, mainstream media had reverse strategy, painting him as the savior and covering up any possible corruption allegations he or his family may have been involved with. At the final 2020 presidential debate, Biden dismissed evidence that his son has controversial ties to businesses in Ukraine and China as a hoax from Russia.
The laptop is Russia, Russia,
Gentlemen,
Russia?
I want to stay on the issue of race.
You
okay?
have to be kidding. Here we
Mr.
go
President?
again with Russia.
That what he's accusing me of is a Russian plan.
Almost immediately, mainstream media ran with it.
As you know perfectly well, I'm a journalist and a reporter, and I follow the facts. And there has never been any issues in terms of corruption.
Twitter, a public square platform, not only censored news about Hunter Biden's laptop, but shut down entire account of the New York Post when it published an investigative story on the topic. Now, after the election, the Justice Department has announced it is investigating Hunter Biden's business deals in Ukraine and China, and only now mainstream media are changing their tune. Why would mainstream media and big tech want to mobilize so powerfully against Trump? If you simply follow the money, it all points to the Chinese Communist Party. They own or influence most of our mainstream media, and the number one person who has stood in the way of their globalization project is President Trump. So follow me down the rabbit hole and let me show you how far this goes. 90% of US media outlets are owned by 6 corporations, and these corporations have massive business interests in China. For example, Disney, which owns ABC, ESPN, and several movie studios, has opened theme parks in China. The project costs about $3.6 trillion US and was financed by several large Chinese state-owned enterprises. According to an account in the New York Times, Disney's chairman, Bob Iger, met with China's top propaganda minister in 2010 and promised to use Disney's global platform to spread CCP propaganda. CNN's parent company, Warner Media, has a $50 million partnership with communist-controlled China Media Capital, a media company with oversight from the Communist Party, meaning it is subject to censorship and other demands to push Chinese propaganda. Both MSNBC and NBC are operated by NBC Universal. In 2010, NBC signed an agreement with Xinhua News Agency, the Communist Party's official mouthpiece, to establish an international broadcast news business partnership. They are also tied to China's leading tech giant, Baidu. NBC Universal also has a stake in a China media venture worth $3.8 billion. In 2018, The Hollywood Reporter reported that Beijing-based investment group called CMC Capital Partners had acquired full ownership of NBC Universal's Oriental DreamWorks, a division of NBC Universal. Our print media are equally compromised. The Boston Globe, New York Times, LA Times, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, and others have billionaire majority owners that have enormous business ties with the Chinese Communist Party. For example, the richest man in Mexico, billionaire Carlos Slim, is also the largest shareholder of the New York Times. Slim's ventures with Chinese companies span automotive and high-tech industries and make up a significant portion of his wealth. Slim's company, American Movil, is also working with Chinese communist telecom giant Huawei to pitch a 5G pilot project to the Colombian government. While profiting from Chinese Communist Party deals in Latin America, he's paying the salaries of New York Times staff in the US. Do you get now why this newspaper is whitewashing the evils of communism? Here's another one. The Washington Post was acquired by Amazon CEO and billionaire Jeff Bezos for $250 million in cash. Bezos has also been trying to expand Amazon's businesses in China, saying Amazon is well positioned to serve China. Bezos' connection to the Communist Party is evident in the advertising section of the Washington Post. The subscription edition includes an advertisement supplement called China Watch, provided by the China Daily, which is also a mouthpiece for the Chinese Communist Party. So clearly the Washington Post openly accepts advertising fees from the Chinese Communist Party. Then there's big tech. Several CEOs, including Apple's Tim Cook and Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg, make almost annual pilgrimages to Beijing to cozy up with Communist Party leader Xi Jinping. Most recently, Tim Cook was made chairman of the advisory board for the Tsinghua University School of Economics and Management. Cook was caught on camera saying how meeting Xi gave him chills. And even way more disturbing than that is Zuckerberg, who famously asked Xi to help him name his firstborn child. But that's not the end of it. A recent report from National Pulse revealed scathing information from the Department of Justice's Foreign Agent Registration Act. The Pulse wrote that a massive host of corporate media outlets and top journalists selected for effectiveness are in the conflict of interest and possibly compromised by having private dinners and sponsored trips with a shady group in the US linked directly to the Chinese Communist Party. The mission is to recruit journalists to garner favorable coverage and disseminate positive messages in key national media regarding China. And in turn, hundreds of articles favoring China have been published. Some of those media outlets include ABC, Associated Press, Reuters, BBC, Bloomberg, CNBC, CNN, MSNBC, The New York Times, The New Yorker, New York Magazine, Newsweek, NPR, The Financial Times, Forbes, Huffington Post, Los Angeles Times, The Guardian, The Economist, Time Magazine, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, and the list goes on and on and on. It's hardly the type of relationship you'd expect with a regime that's responsible for the deaths of more than 80 million of its own citizens over the past 70 years. And to be clear, that's not just ancient history. In China today, at this very moment, there are over 1 million Muslims held in concentration camps and a significant number of people who practice Falun Gong that are being killed for their organs that are being sold by state-run hospitals. The suppression of Tibet, the attack of democratic Hong Kong, and the cover-up of the coronavirus allowing it to spread and kill over 1 million worldwide so far, while jailing whistleblowers who tried to raise awareness of it in China. This is today's communist China. So what does this have to do with Trump? Well, the Trump administration's economic moves with respect to China went way beyond tariffs. Trump began cutting ties between the US and Chinese businesses known to help the Chinese military. He also moved to limit sending billions of dollars to Chinese companies that were not adhering to standard accounting practices. Trump, in effect, was the first US administration to understand that all major corporations in China are overseen by and serve the Communist Party. And so any business with them equates to doing business with the Communist Party. Trump was making a lot of people in Beijing nervous, and that was making Wall Street and Silicon Valley nervous. We then have this guy, Professor Di Zhongchen. He gave this presentation at a major financial event in Shanghai this November. In it, he arrogantly states that the Communist Party has manipulated the core power circle of old friends in Washington for decades, and done so largely through connections on Wall Street and other business leaders. He characterizes the US as a disjointed collection of interest groups and fools, all of which can be bought off. He actually says, if one pile of money doesn't do the job, two piles will. This comment made his entire Chinese audience laugh, but to us, It's not funny at all. He goes on to say that after Trump was elected president, Wall Street could not control Trump, and therefore the Communist Party could not corrupt Trump through their old friends. Faced with the immovable Trump administration, the Communist Party indeed helped Biden's son to establish global funds. If you wanted a smoking gun to Hunter Biden's dealings with China that Joe Biden and the mainstream media completely ignored and blamed on Russia, then there you have it. So here's the bottom line. The Communist Party wants Trump gone so they can manipulate Washington, D.C. again. The media and big tech want Trump gone so they can resume their big business with the Communist Party. You get it? Again, this is not a Trump-Biden thing. If I was a Trump supporter and I found out that all media organizations were censoring information or blatantly lying to me about Biden, then I would be furious and also really scared that the media had such control over my thoughts. I would also be wondering what else they're lying to me about. Our media outlets are for-profit companies that are directly and indirectly tied to the largest and most evil totalitarian regime in history, and the Communist Party is pulling massive strings with our mainstream media to control our thoughts and minds, and even our elections right here. If this doesn't make you stop and think, then I don't know what will. So for what it's worth, just remember, the next time you read or listen to CNN, New York Times, or Washington Post, there's a big chance they're feeding you BS. Share this with someone so we can get the truth out. I'll see you next time.